Undercover in Sports Network.
Nation, how you doing? Come on in. Take a seat, sit back, relax, put your feet up, grab a drink, and let's talk Saints football. Y'all know what time it is. Time to keep it real. Let's go. As the 2025 season rapidly approaches, the New Orleans Saints find themselves at a pivotal moment. Gone are the days when the team was defined by legendary quarterback Drew Brees and iconic coach Sean Payton. The Dennis Allen era, unfortunately, didn't quite hit the mark. But now, a new chapter begins with the arrival of Kellen Moore and one of the youngest coaches in the NFL, who is tasked with bringing the Saints back to prominence. Under Moore's leadership, the focus has shifted to building a competitive roster. The salary cap has once again been a hot topic, but the Saints have managed to navigate these challenges effectively. After some strategic moves, an unceremoniously retirement, they now sit in a stronger financial position, giving them the flexibility to make key acquisitions. As the season kicks off, all eyes will be on Kellen Moore and this revamped team to see if they can rise to the occasion and bring back the glory days to New Orleans. Keeping it real, who that sports pod, legendary coach Rock, Dog 17. Let's rock. Who that? Boss kick, black and gold. Let's go. First and goal from the one. Let's believe we go punch. Punch it in, get them punch. With them Saints, watch us march. Down the field, down your throat. Keeping it real, who the sports. Breaking news, interviews, open lines just for you. Call in, join in. Who that nation? We're in the building, baby. Family, you see him next to me. Let's welcome my brother home. He's with the Come On In Sports Network. He's the host of Real Fan Sports. And you already know he's black and gold. Who that true and true. My brother Zach is in the house. Zach, how you doing today?
Oh, man, I'm doing great, man. I'm excited. Happy Memorial Weekend to everybody. We have got a special one for you guys today as we bring in our amazing guests from WWL 870 AM sports radio personality, the host of Inside Black and Gold podcast, no other than Jeff Nowak.
Jeff,
there I am.
Come What's on up? In, man.
How you doing?
What's going on, Jeff? How you doing, my man?
I was a little frightened by the AI version of me on the promo art there. I was like, who is that guy? That guy looks terrifying. And I was like, oh, okay, I get it. But yeah, I'm doing good though.
Right, look, at least you're popular enough to where they know what you look like. At least, I guess you got that going for you.
Yeah, man. Listen, I went through about 4 or 5 photos, man, before I got that one. That was the best one I got. I was like, okay, we're gonna go with this one.
No lazy eye, nothing like that. So you're good to go. No 7 fingers.
Yeah, man. I did one with me. My mouth was down here, my damn eyebrow was up there. And my head had a big old knot. I'm like, what the hell is that, man? Is that how I look? Like, I'm messed up, man. But Jeff, hey, thank you for being here, man. Jeff, before we even dive in about the Saints, man, there's a question that I want to know, man. Where did your love for journalism, especially sports journalism, begin? And the passion, what drives you?
I mean, I just love. I've always been a sports guy, right? Like, my dad loves sports. I love sports. The weird thing about me is I grew up in Connecticut, and so Connecticut's kind of right in the middle of tri-state area and Northeast. So I grew up as like a New York Giants football fan, but then a Red Sox and Celtics fan because it's like kind of right there. And like I tell people down here that, and they're just like, look at me like I have three heads. I'm like, it's normal up there. One of my best friends is a Yankees fan and a Celtics fan, a Patriots fan. But either way, no, I mean, it just kind of made sense. I went to college for journalism. I was going to do political science. I have a minor in political science. But then I just started covering sports, and I got an internship at the Hartford Courant in Connecticut, and just kind of started doing it. This job down here, I kind of fell into it because I didn't really do sports. I mean, I did sports throughout the process, but I was doing news primarily before I got the job down here, and then I was working at NOLA.com and doing a lot of the digital stuff. Then I kind of just got tired of the news part of it, went over to WWL, and I've been there ever since. But like, I didn't go to school for broadcast journalism. Radio was never a thing for me. I just kind of fell face down.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's worked out over the last few years, but yeah, I don't have a great, I'm not going to be a memoirs guy. I don't really have great stories to tell. I wish I need to go to AI and have them write me a better backstory than the one.
It might work.
Right, man. And so, Jeff, how did you come to be the Saints sideline reporter, man? Because to me, man, that's big to me, man.
I mean, in all honesty, it's just was right place, right time. I mean, I was covering the Saints, and the only thing I wasn't doing was doing the sideline reporter stuff. So, we had an opening. Steve Geller, who was our sideline reporter, went on to. He's now our sports director, so he can't do the sideline stuff and that at the same time. He now hosts like the pregame, postgame,
right?
So it just made sense because I was covering the team daily, and I'm capable of doing it. I think that was the part of it that is the question is, okay, we could have a reporter, but are they capable of actually talking on the radio and, not doing stupid stuff, I guess would be the easiest way to say that without cursing.
Right.
Fair enough.
And so, yeah, it just kind of worked out. And it's funny because I've never even done anything remotely like that before.
Right.
It's like, hey, how do you plan for it? Like, you just kind of have to get out there and do it. And it worked out because Steve, the year before I started doing it, Steve had to miss a game because he had COVID. So I think it was week 4. It was maybe week 3. It was the Saints-Bucks game where Jameis threw all those interceptions. It was the one where he threw to Olave like 13 times. It was the strangest. It was because I think you had lost Mike Thomas and Jarvis Landry the week before. So it was like, all right, this is out there somewhere. And so I did it for that game. So that was the fortunate thing is when that opened up and they were like, oh, can he do it? I had actually already done it in an emergency. It was kind of like the utility infielder coming off the bench. And so, yeah, I mean, that's just how it worked out. And it's been 2 years now. I'm starting to think it's me personally why they're so bad. I have not, since I've been down there, it has been nothing but victory.
Jeff, I got similar feelings, man. Jeff, ever since we started the channel, everything's been going downhill. It doesn't matter. It doesn't seem if it's the Saints, if it's the Pelicans, if it's the other crazy international sports. Every team I pledge my allegiance to, all of a sudden they start having bad luck, and I'm like, I just started watching you guys. Y'all were in the finals the year before. What did I do? Why? Right. But I guess it happens that way.
So, Jeff, with you being on the sideline, man, that gives you a different perspective that the casual viewer doesn't see. So as you're down there on the sideline, man, what are some of the benefits that you get from being down there during game time?
It's funny because there's a lot of things I don't see because one of the things that's kind of interesting when you're down there, especially when you're on the road, they're not showing replays. You watch it on TV, you're seeing a replay almost immediately. If there's a questionable call on the road, you're lucky if they play it once on the big screen. So I'm seeing a lot in real time, and it's happening real fast. The benefit I have is I'm wearing the headphones, so I'm hearing the real time radio broadcast. So I have Deuce McAllister breaking down what's happening in my ear, which is very helpful because that is the thing. Like it's hard to see exactly what's going on, especially the blocking in the pass rush. Like your eyes go to the receivers, your eyes go downfield. But no, I mean, it's just kind of cool to see how, like, when you've watched enough games on TV, you kind of get the cadence for how everything happens, but you don't get all that in between stuff where, you know, the coaches are yelling at the players on the bench, or they're like circling up and having a meeting, or, you know, the actual like energy. Like you can tell by looking at the bench how the game is going almost without fail. And if you can't, that's almost a red flag. Like if the game's going badly and everyone's out over there laughing on the bench, which hasn't been what's happened. You know, it's weird, right? That means the energy is off. The other thing you get is like you'll catch on the broadcast like, oh, Darren Rizzi was yelling at so and so, but like that happened like maybe 1 out of every 4 times that Darren Rizzi threw a tantrum at a player on the sideline. Did it actually get to the broadcast? And the craziest one was against the Chiefs. It was 2 Isaiahs, and he was yelling at both Isaiahs, Isaiah Stallbird and Isaiah Foskey. And like I thought he was gonna punch a guy, right? Like it was aggressive, and that was Riz. And I mean, he means well, like, but like he's intense, and that's kind of something when you're down there and you like can actually like, you know, you're 10 feet away from him.
Yeah, you're
and some
feeling
places you're closer than others. That's what you really get is kind of the emotion and the energy. That, you know, it's all about the game when you're watching it, even from the press box. It's all about the actual game. When you're down there, it's about everything in between that.
Gotcha. Yeah. And I mean, I know like I had my first experience of just being closer up during this past Senior Bowl where we actually got to meet Jeff, which was sick, being able to meet you in the I forget even what the dang building was called, but we were out there. But it's one of those situations, like you say, you don't really get to see the replays and stuff, especially if you're away. So like you've got to be tentative to what's actually going on. You can't miss a play. You got to be locked in, or you're going to miss something and be sitting there at a loss at, okay, what's exactly going on right now? Was there any like initial shocks, like your first time, you know, getting on the sideline and working the different games and stuff like that? Like caught you off guard, I guess?
Yeah, I wouldn't say shocks. I mean, the interesting thing is how different a lot of these stadiums are, especially the older stadiums. Like I was talking to Willie Gay about this when he was here. Obviously, he's not here anymore, but he played for the Chiefs forever. And one interesting thing about like, so I always forget the name of the field. But so Chiefs, Lambeau, right? Like some of these really old stadiums. The Superdome's old, but it's been renovated several times. But like the older stadiums, there's like, I don't know, 10 feet between the bench and the first row of seats. And there was one time that Derek Carr was talking about like how he has like he played at that field so many times that Arrowhead, he played at that field so many times that he could like there was like actual fans that he had encountered multiple times, and they're always really loud and mean. And I was like, that's weird, like because at the Superdome it's pretty far away. Like you're talking about maybe like 40 feet. But like there, when I got there, I was like, now I understand, because when those guys are standing up in the front row and yelling, you're hearing every single thing they say. That's what Willie agreed. He was like, oh yeah, like you have to just tune them out, and sometimes you can't. Whereas like if you've ever seen like the Superdome, like if you're yelling from the first row, they might not even hear you. So that's kind of interesting. And
unless you got a voice like DOLPH, like I'm sure they can hear DOLPH.
DOLPH
a little loud.
They're all hearing you either way. Who actually lives like a block away from me. If he whistled from his house, we would hear it. But you know, the other thing is on the sideline, there's always and this is not football related, but I did not know this, is there's the TV carts, right? Like that's how you get the sideline angles. They're always just flying up and back across the sideline. And for some of these stadiums with a lot less room, like you got to have your head on a swivel. Like they have a guy who's running in front of it, being like, "Get out of the way, get out of the way." But like
they need to get you. It's not OSHA approved, that's for sure, man. They need to get you some high vis and everything like that.
There've been a couple times that I almost got wiped out, and then by that and the punters or the long snap, Zach Woods is out there warming up constantly on the sideline, so he's whipping the ball 20 yards, and if you're like not paying attention, just get slapped across the face. And they'll get mad at you because they got a system, they got to work. But yeah, I mean, just being on the sideline, that's kind of the interesting part, is you're so close to everything that's happening, that the stuff that you miss because you're looking at the field. It's like a swarm of bees going on around it.
Gotcha. Well, let's get into the talk of the new black and gold. You heard it at my opening monologue. First of all, let's talk about Kellen Moore. The new era of Saints football is here. The rebuild is finally here, though they still don't want to call it a rebuild, but it's a rebuild, a total rebuild. Did you think the Saints were fortunate to get Kellen Moore? Because there were thoughts that the Saints wouldn't get such a high caliber coach and one looked upon as well as Kellen Moore around the league.
You know, it wasn't a surprise in that, you know, everyone, like, they were the only team left, right? It was the question was, did Kellen want to come here? And it sounds like he decided pretty early on in that process that the answer was yes. So, you know, it from the Saints' perspective, the reason they were operating without a ton of urgency is because they felt pretty confident that, you know, he was going to come take this job. The issue throughout the process was, you know, yes, there were some other candidates. Obviously, Aaron Glenn, they would have loved to have Aaron Glenn at least be a finalist for that job, but they weren't going to rush into it. So it never really, obviously he went to the Jets and that was kind of his dream job. So they lost out there. But, you know, I think their goal was to find someone who wanted to be here, you know?
Right.
And so I wouldn't say I was surprised. The one that I think gets misconstrued a lot is the Mike McCarthy one, because the Saints weren't really interested in Mike McCarthy. I still see people say like, he took himself took himself out of the running, which technically he did. But it's like saying like, you can't fire me, I quit, you know, kind of situation.
Right.
Like it wasn't really that. So I don't know. Like at the end of the day, they got a target. And so that was my concern, is they weren't going to get one of their targets and they were going to end up with Riz, who I actually think would have been fine in that role, but it would have been a PR disaster. And, you know, this team has just been really bad about not avoiding PR disasters.
I mean, the last 2 years, you've had some experience having to deal with all that. So it would have been a fun another one for you. I mean, it's funny you talk about that with McCarthy. It's, you know, kind of the similar stuff we're hearing right now. The big statement that's out there is, Aaron Rodgers not coming to the Saints. He said he doesn't want to live in New Orleans. It's like, well, yeah, we've known that now for about 3 weeks. Like we said we don't want him anyway because we're cool with the young group. Like we don't want to get the old head with whatever instabilities he's got going on over there. So it's always funny that those rumors spiral out and you know, try to look at it as a negative thing of, the Saints, he didn't want to be on the Saints. Well, the Saints really didn't want you either. Sorry, bud.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I didn't want that free trip to Spain that you never offered me, right? Like that's it's kind of stupid, and that's where we are. It's that time of year where everyone's just looking for something to talk about, right? I don't think the Steelers want Aaron Rodgers, to be completely honest. I just think they don't want to start Mason Rudolph or whoever it is. Is it Mason Rudolph?
Yeah, Mason Rudolph.
They're just in a situation where they'll take anybody, but like I don't think any team wants to hand the keys over to Aaron Rodgers for a season, just knowing what we know about Aaron Rodgers. Like there's going to be a situation, like I'm sure the ownership is probably pushing because they want butts in seats. They want to win games.
Right.
They want to, you know, they haven't had a losing season and how long. Right. So, but I would be stunned if Mike Tomlin is gushing over the idea of like, oh yeah, let's get that guy in here. So I don't know, but the Saints, you know, that's why I appreciate the Saints is like, you know, and this was not even by their own volition. This just happened to them and they kind of lucked into it, but they're resetting in a way that makes sense. Right. And they've at least been able to sell the veterans on that, and Derek retiring kind of allowed that to happen. That was kind of my take the whole time. It was like, this was not their choice. This was not their plan A, but they were forced onto plan B, and plan B was always the better option. They just weren't willing to do it. So that's like, I think that's why, like this season, you know, if last season they win 3 games, it would have been an unmitigated disaster. This season, you go out and win 3 games, it will be miserable to watch. But
you're fine.
I don't think you'll get the anger and the uproar because you'll be like, all right, this is, you know, we signed up for this, right? Like this is the reason we were okay with moving on from Derek. Because this is the rip the Band-Aid off season that the Bucs should have had a couple years ago and just didn't, and they ruined. I feel
I feel like me and Dolph are on the opposite side of this because I'm exactly where you're at, Jeff. I'm sitting here. It's like I think the worst thing that could happen for the Saints is us to get 7 wins, 6, 7 wins, something like that, 8 wins, and not feel like the starting quarterback is in the locker room. I feel like is the worst situation. But if you get those 7, 8 wins, you play them games strong, and even in the games you lose, that you see something, whether it be Rattler, whether it be Shuck or whoever, then you're like, okay, well now we got something to build upon. I mean, the fact that we have I think Pelicans Nola posted earlier 4 number 1 O linemen and a Pro Bowl center, our number 1 overall pick or first round picks on the O line. All those things look good.
Yeah, so I understand what you're saying, which would be like 7 wins, but they're like Taysom Hill wins, right? Like you win like 9-0, or like Teddy Bridgewater wins where they were like 13-7. You're like, hey, they won, but it wasn't pretty.
It wasn't due for us, right?
But yeah, I mean, I think in most scenarios, if you went out and won 7 games, it would mean your quarterbacks played pretty well, and it's just a question of which quarterback that is. But no, I mean, I think the offensive line, like that's. It's an area the Saints have invested. I see sometimes people say, they need to invest in the offensive line. I'm like, what is investing in the offensive line if it's not 4 first-round picks and a high second-round pick in a year where you didn't have a second-round pick in Eric McCoy? So, yeah, no, I'm kind of curious to see. Ideally, you keep those guys healthy and on the field. Like that's been the biggest issue is, if these guys aren't healthy, what are you going to do, right? Like last year, the first 2 games of the season, the offensive line was a strength. You went out to Dallas and you shut down Micah Parsons and Tank Lawrence. Obviously, they kept a lot of help in, but they got it done. And then you just lost the entire interior offensive line, and it just
all at once
killed your run game. You weren't able to do anything you wanted to do on offense. So, honestly, the name of this offseason that might be bigger than anyone on the roster is Ted Rath, who's the new pro performance director that Kellen brought with him from the Eagles. Because, you saw weeks 1 and 2 what this team could do when healthy. Were they a playoff team? I don't know. But what we saw throughout a lot of the season was not anything remotely close to the roster that they could have put on the field. Like, one of the interesting things from OTAs the other day was, we saw Spencer Rattler throwing, and it was Spencer Rattler throwing to Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed. It was like, wow, that looks different.
Yeah. Really
that would have been nice to see last year at some point. And meanwhile, you're throwing to Dante Pettis and MVS, who played really well, but it's like you're talking about MVS as your top receiver, a guy who showed up in week 7. Yes. So, like, that's the story. It's like if you need to reverse that trend somehow, and there's going to be injuries, you're not going to be perfectly healthy, but something wasn't working. Like the process couldn't have been optimal if you're having that level of injuries. Pete Werner had a major hamstring injury in a walkthrough. Think about that. How does that even happen? They're not running.
They're walking.
You're walking. As the name suggests, like there's no contact. How do you strain your hamstring? He missed 3 weeks with that injury.
Anyway. We've been riddled with him, man. It's been unfortunate, and I actually didn't know that about Moore bringing that guy in, and that's interesting because I mean it's obviously been a big need. It's been a big struggle for the Saints in their performances with just injuries. I mean it's hard to prevent them. We understand it's very physical. It's a contact sport. Obviously, there's a lot that goes into it, a lot of training that's involved. But the fact that it's just constantly injury after injury after injury, reoccurring, and we're never progressing in a place to where we're able to stay healthy or even competitive because of the health. We don't even know what the team would have looked like if that O-line would have stayed healthy in the earlier part of the year. There's no telling.
And then just the other day, Coach Moore actually started off the press conference by praising Mr. Rath in the job that he is doing. So that tells you that they have identified, understand that health has been one of the biggest problems for this team. Now, we all know that every team in the National Football League deals with injuries, and the Saints, somebody in particular like to use injuries as excuses, but it is what it is. What the problem is that the quality of depth on this team has been the problem. The Saints lack the coverage. It's bare after the starters. I think this year, what I was happy to see, excuse me, Jeff, what I was happy to see was this year in the draft, instead of the Saints packaging picks to move up, they stayed packed. They let the draft board come to them, and they made all 9 selections in the draft. My thinking on that is if you can get 5 to 6 of these kids to be contributors and 3 to 4 to be major contributors, this draft class will be considered a success, and it will put the Saints back on the path to becoming a more complete team. What's your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's been the biggest issue for this team. Like, there's talent on this team, but there's not depth on this team, right? And that's because you've missed on a lot of draft picks, and it's just a fact. And they actually had a really good run of like 2nd and 3rd round picks hitting, and they've kind of missed in recent years. Paulson Debo was a good 3rd round pick, but it wasn't like a star 3rd round pick. And so like the quality picks you've made have been kind of starter caliber picks. You haven't added a star. Chris Olave is the closest thing probably, and it's like, okay, if he can stay healthy, great. I mean, but your other contributors, I mean, you're talking about Alvin Kamara. He's a star player. He was drafted in 2017, right? You haven't drafted a quarterback. The offensive lineman, I think Fuaga has a chance to develop into a star right tackle. I think Eric McCoy is a star like that. Honestly, that's probably their best draft pick since 2017 is Eric McCoy in 2019 in a year where you had to get a starting center because Max Unger retired suddenly and you didn't have a 1st round pick and you had to trade up to go get him. But no, I agree with you. Like that's been my big thing this offseason. It's not about, like you're not going to hit on all your picks. Right. Like you're going to miss picks, but if you're not getting enough darts up on the board, those misses are going to seem way more significant, right? Like if Peyton Turner becomes a way bigger issue because you didn't make a lot of picks to overcome that. And you look at some of the most successful drafts the Saints have had, 2006, 2017, they had those extra picks, particularly extra picks in the 3rd round. And that's where you had a lot of the meat of this draft, like Malik Yamadaval, Fadil Diggs, who knows these 7th round picks, kind of the dart throws at the end. Probably guys you could have brought in as UDFAs anyway, like the number 253 pick in the draft. You probably could have got. It's basically just a quick UDFA, right? A UDFA you don't have to talk to. You can be like, he's coming here either way. But no, I mean that's you got to get better at drafting, or it's not even getting better at drafting. It's like you got to. Your strategy of how you obtain and utilize draft picks has to get better. Because if you're constantly trading up, you better be nailing all of those picks. Otherwise, you're just you're wasting resources on a wasted resource.
And speaking of a possibility of a wasted resource, it gives me no pleasure in saying this because I don't like to call players busts. But like I say, he's on the cusp of being a bust. I was one of his biggest advocates when he was coming out, all-time sack leader at one of the most prestigious universities in the United States. I'm talking about Isaiah Foskey. Isaiah Foskey, and if there are any members of the Foskey family looking, I'm sorry, but the truth is the truth. And if you want me to say something good, I will say something good by his play. But so far, his play has not added up to being able allow me here right now to be able to say something positive. The thing is, I'm disappointed in what he has become so far in the National Football League. Now, my thing is this: was it all Isaiah Foskey, or was it also the previous scheme that he was in? Did that fit his skill set?
Yeah, so my thing with Isaiah is like I would love to be critical of his play. The problem is there's not much to be critical of. Like, I think he got 56 snaps he was healthy all 17 games. Yes. I think he got 56 defensive snaps. Think about that. I mean, how much of an impact can you really have when you're getting 4 snaps a game? And that was one of my bigger issues with Dennis Allen and how it seemed like the disconnect between the people who were drafting the players and the people who were deciding who played. Because you look at Zach Bond, right? Like they went and got Zach Bond for a reason.
They didn't use him the way he's supposed to be used.
Never got used, right? The team never found a way to utilize him. Isaiah Foskey is right there in that same situation. Like, yeah, I mean, if he was playing better, maybe he would have gotten on the field. But how are you going to get on the field? How are you going to play well if you're not on the field to play? He has been a special teams contributor. That's what they'll say. And it's true. We kind of skate over that, but like that is important. You do need guys to contribute on special teams. So I don't know. Like I'd like to see them play him. I'd like to see him get opportunities so that I can say he didn't do well.
Do you feel it's a thing where
he has a chance to contribute in maybe this system that he didn't in the past? Because I think the 3-4 outside linebacker role could suit him. He's a more athletic guy, and I think just the size and strength worked against him. He's not really built to be that 4-3 defensive end. So that's my hope, is that Jay Rodgers, who's a new edge rushers coach, can find a way to incorporate him and get him on the field. Because that was the other problem. Like we talked about all his health. The only position it seemed like that didn't have injuries was defensive line, right? Chase Young, Carl Granderson, Cam Jordan, they were all out there. Even Peyton Turner stayed healthy last year. So that you really didn't have a chance for him.
7 tackles and a half a sack in his career. 7 tackles, and we talking about special teams. 7 tackles in 2 years and a half a sack. He has to be better.
Yeah.
He has to be better.
You got to play him.
Got to play him.
Right. And that's what leads me. Do you think was it a scheme thing? Was it something they weren't seeing at practice that didn't allow him to get the reps that you would expect from him? Like what was holding him back from getting those opportunities on the actual field?
I mean, it wasn't, like I said, it was kind of a loaded position when you look at it.
Yeah.
Like in order to get him on the field, one of Chase Young, Carl Granderson, Cam Jordan, or 2 of those guys wasn't going to be on the field, right? And they're healthy all season long. So, it's going to be interesting to see what they do with Cam. This defense isn't going to be beholden to him in the way that the past defense was. If they're working him as an outside linebacker now, it's going to be part of his role. So if he can't hack it there, then that's probably how you get Foskey onto the field, is Cam gets fewer snaps. He won't like it, but that's just the reality of where you are when you're a 35, 36-year-old edge rusher. But we'll see. Like this is a big year for him, like for Foskey. Like if he doesn't show it in camp, he may not make the roster at all. Yeah, right. So it might be a moot point. Like he's got to go out there and show he's developed. Because I think one of his issues, and this is in part because you're not playing, is he doesn't really have a pass rushing arsenal that does a whole lot. It's like you only really need 2 moves. You need kind of your main move, then you need a counter move off of that.
Right.
And I don't think he just hasn't developed anything outside of kind of a straight bull rush. And you just can't get away with that at the NFL level.
No, you have, especially with the athleticism and talent of every tackle in the National Football League. Now, Jeff, let's transition to the biggest news of the offseason. We spoke about it earlier. The sudden surprise retirement of Derek Carr. Were the Saints caught off guard by Derek Carr's retirement? I kind of feel like they had an inkling that he may miss time during the season because, and let me know if you felt the same way, in the last, I would say 10 to 12 years, I have never seen the Saints invest so much time in scouting quarterbacks as they did in this year's draft. It seemed to me that they were abundantly very aggressive in scouting this year's quarterback class.
Yeah, I mean, whether Derek played or not, you were going to be looking at quarterback. So, I don't know if those two things are connected. In the sense of being surprised, I would say I think it's a yes and a no, right? Because it depends when you're asking about. Because they did not know when they restructured that contract that we were talking about potential retirement. Like, there's no way. They just did not know. They may have known he was kind of working on stuff, but every player in the NFL has some level of, hey, I got this going on. I'm, maybe getting some physical therapy for this nagging thing. Like, that's just something that happens. I think as the draft approached, it became clear that this was the scenario you were talking about. He had an injection in that shoulder. They were going to see, hey, could he rehab this? What is it going to look like? Their doctor's got to look at him. But I mean, at that point, there was a lot of communication. So they were not surprised. Like we were surprised when the news came out that it was retirement, but they knew prior to that. And one of the reasons that they weren't being very forthcoming about the situation is that was a very tentative situation, right? And Derek did work with them to a good extent of, he could have tried to scratch back a lot of that money. They would have probably fought him on it. It could have gotten ugly. I think that's what they wanted to avoid, was a protracted, ugly scenario where they had to file a grievance for whatever. And instead, he gets his $10 million. They get the $30 million in cap relief, and both sides go their own separate way. But no, I mean, they were planning to move on from Derek Carr, right? It wasn't like, hey, this is going to be our guy for the next 2-3 years. I think it was, okay, we can make it work this year, but after this, we're going to have a plan.
Right.
So, I mean, it really just sped up your clock more than anything else.
Which is good.
Absolutely.
But when you drafted Tyler Shuck, you knew that there was a good chance he'd be starting in week 1.
No.
They knew, I should say.
I guess that.
Go ahead, Zach.
I was going to say, if you want to go, go ahead, Duff. If you want to backtrack, I was going to talk about Tyler Shuck. What you got?
Yeah. This question here, I'm still on this money. There's no way you leave $30 million on the table. No way, injured or not, especially with basically guaranteed money, unless there was something that you personally did, like you say about the grievance and the Saints. No doubt the Saints were going to fight if he would have tried to collect that full salary. To me, it seems as if Derek Carr on his side may have fumbled the ball in maybe reporting or letting the Saints know exactly what had happened or what was going on with him. Like you said, before the restructure, because I'm sure if they knew before they restructured, like you said, there is no way in hell they despite what we think about Mickey, I'm sure there's no way in hell Mickey would have restructured him knowing what he knew.
Yeah, I mean, there was some questions about the timeline of it all. My read on it, and this is kind of just reading tea leaves more than anything else. Like, Derek's not a terrible person. Like, people don't like him as a football player, so they want to throw he's just a garbage human. He's not. He's a very faith-driven person. He's not like this guy like counting his money. He's not Scrooge McDuck diving into money pools. Excellent.
That's a good one.
He lost a lot of people with that one.
When it came down to it, it was like, I don't want to have this surgery, at least not right now. I'm not going to play. In order to get that money, he was going to have to probably have that surgery and commit to playing beyond that year. Like, because you can't just sit there and collect your check, or at least it is obviously not a very cool thing to do, right? Like it'd be kind of a jerk move to sit there and be like, I'm going to take all my money. I'm never going to play for you again, but I'm going to pretend I will in order to get that. And I just think he didn't want to go down that road. The Saints were more than happy to not go down that road. If they claw back that $10 million signing bonus, he would have probably fought it. But at the end of the day, like, he's made a lot of money in his career. I just think, like, I know it's really easy to look at and say, oh, there's got to be something going on. I don't know. I've never been in that scenario, so I can't tell you how I would have reacted to it. But $10 million isn't exactly nothing.
No. I mean, it's not nothing. I understand. But let me say,
I'll take $10 million if anyone wants to donate.
But there are reports out there that his camp was calling around the league asking teams would they be interested in trading for him. So if he wasn't willing to take the surgery, like everything you just said, if he wasn't willing to do that, to be part of the Saints, though he knew he wasn't going to play, why would his team? And this has come across from credible people around the league, sources. This has come from credible people that Derek Carr's camp was calling around asking teams would they be interested in trading for Derek Carr. So what's your thoughts about that?
Yeah, my understanding is that was prior to the injury scenario kind of becoming a thing, right? And we knew that, like, that was kind of well reported, is that he would have been very willing to move out of New Orleans.
Right.
And, I kind of feel like that's kind of where it is. He didn't want to be here. Like, I don't think there's any question that he wanted to be here or not. Like, he didn't want to be here. Right. He didn't like y'all. He never sees another Saints fan again. He's probably gonna be happy about it. Right. And that's why, like, that was during the point where you were talking, is he going to take a pay cut? Right. Are they going to trade him? Are they going to cut him outright? And I think if I'm Derek Carr, I'm like, I'm not taking a pay cut to go play in front of those ingrates. Like, if I'm going to play there, I'm going to get all my money. Right. And so it became, and then it became kind of a bargaining situation of, okay, is there interest in trading for me? And that's something that happens. You know, agents exist to kick tires and kind of figure out pathways. And Derek had a no trade clause, so it was always going to be on him to okay or veto a trade. Right. So that's just something that happens. I think the Saints would probably have preferred it didn't, because they want to be in control of that scenario. But I think those are two separate things. And like, I don't think, you know, he found out about the injury and then he was like, if they trade for me, I'll get the surgery. Like, I think it was, hey, I'm going to present the Saints with the information that someone's out there willing to trade for me and I'm willing to go play there. And then y'all can make that decision. It is what it is. It's weird.
The way I've always looked at stuff like that, it's like, you got to put yourself in each other's shoes and stuff like that. You're always going to do what's the best for you. I mean, as much as a Saints fan, you'd be annoyed by, you know, his decision of him trying to take care of his own. You feel like he owes you something or whatnot. But I mean, the fact of the matter is, he doesn't know you a damn thing, and it's just how life works, man. You know, it's an unfortunate thing. I think how it all transpired, I think it benefited us to the max. And whether or not you want to believe you know, what we're seen to be as a fairy tale of him just gifting us the $30 million back, or whatever it may be, or if you want to think it was some type of scam, or, you know, whatever, it's over and done with. And now it's time to look forward into the future and to what we have with what's on our roster. And, you know, that brings up, you know, the battle that everybody's ready for between, you know, Rattler and Shuck, which, you know, so far throughout OTAs, which, you know, is just 7-on-7s, but it's been quite fun. You know, we've seen both quarterbacks do pretty good. I think on the first day, Shuck was 7 for 8, had a good deep ball, and then Rattler was 8 for 8 on his outing. But both of them are looking good, and it's competitive, and it has the fan base, you know, really picking and choosing who they want to root for here. It's kind of fun. What's your thoughts on this battle so far, and like your initial thoughts on Shuck being a part of the team as a rookie?
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, the gift Derek Carr gave to the Saints fans is that we don't have to talk about him anymore. So
exactly,
isn't that great? Isn't that nice? We can talk about these young quarterbacks. But yeah, you know, I think if I'm the Saints, I want Spencer Rattler to go win that job. You know, I like the scenario I don't want is I get to the end of training camp and I don't feel like either of these guys is ready to play.
Yeah,
you know, and if that's the case with the rookie, you can be like, yeah, this is in most cases, it's going to benefit a guy to sit anyway.
Yeah.
But if you feel like Spencer can't get it done, and it's like, we just have to go with the rookie because he's there and we drafted him and we invested in him and we just got to see, that's a bad scenario to me. Because I think this is going to be an ugly season. Like, however you slice it, it's not going to set up to go well. I mean, it'd be great if it did, but it would be a really rough 17 game schedule if you get to like week 9 and you're 2-7 and you don't even have a change to make. Whereas, like, if that happens and you start with Spencer Rattler and it doesn't go well, you can say, all right, we're going to change quarterbacks and we're going to, the second half of this season, like, I think week 12 out of the bye against the Falcons at home would be the perfect way to start Tyler Shuck's career.
Yeah.
And that's kind of when I did my schedule prediction, like my game by game prediction, that's kind of how I had it. Is I think Spencer's going to win the quarterback competition out of camp. You're going to see what he has. And then I would guess you're, I don't know, 4-6, 3-7 in that range. And it just makes sense. Hey, okay, we got 7 games left. Let's see what the rookies got. And then you have a backup quarterback with 16 games of starting experience who, you know, they're both going to be in your QB room. We've seen Saints have to play backups basically every year. So having a guy you trust in that position is important too. But no, I mean, I think Spencer's confident. Like, I think Spencer's coming in knowing that, hey, I mean, I'm the year 2 guy. I'm the guy with all the advantages of I've gone through this before, and everything's gonna be going a mile a minute for him. You know, and it's not easy, right? Like, you go from college to the draft circuit to camp to the season. Like, there's no break for these guys coming out of college. And Spencer's going to come in. His feet are going to be under him. You know, he's going to throw the ball a lot more decisively. And that's what we saw at the first OTAs. Like, and that's what people were reacting to mainly when they say he looked really good, is the ball's coming out of his hand fast, on time, on target. The ball's not hitting the ground. You know, whereas with Tyler, it was a little more hesitant, right? He was a little slower.
Yeah.
One of his completions was he like got all the way through his reads, which was great, but you don't
Took
have
a while.
7 seconds to.
No,
Yeah, you're not doing that.
I've
on
always
full
felt like
blown,
there
yeah.
should be a timer in a 7-on-7 where if the ball's not out by this point, it's a sack, right? Because if you can stand back there for 10 minutes if you want to, that's just
You'll find somebody
that's
open.
not what we're here to do.
Right.
And so that's like Spencer's just going to look like a more decisive guy, and that's what he's going to be. Now, I think Tyler has a lot more kind of natural talent. Like he's built for the position in a way that Spencer will never be. Spencer has an incredible arm. He had one throw that, it was. I wish I had like a radar gun because it had to be like a 90-mile-an-hour fastball. And he basically it was almost like the longest yard where he just throws it and the guy's like knocks him back. Like that's kind of how it was. It kind of like took him off his feet. It was so hard because he's like Spencer has that cannon arm, but all those other things like Tyler's. I would argue Tyler's more athletic. He's 6'5". He can see over the line, which Kellen Moore kind of made a joke about it, but that's just because Kellen Moore has his entire career been told he's too short, he can't see over the line, so maybe he takes that a little personally. Yeah. So I think the upside with Tyler is going to be there, and it's just a question of when you see it on the field.
No. I mean, I think the exciting thing for me is just true quarterback competition, and I feel like that's what Moore is actually going to do. Him being a quarterback himself, playing through college, and there's a bunch of former quarterbacks that are on this coaching staff, and I feel that leads to some fun and some excitement. I mean, what better position to be in as a young quarterback than to fighting for a starting job for someone that needs a franchise quarterback? That way you can make a long, luxurious career out of playing for this one team. So, both of them having this opportunity, they should be hungry. They should be, wild animals out there fighting and trying to bully their way through and competing for that starting position. I think we're going to get the best. Hopefully we get the best out of both these players and they don't hold on to any animosity or anything like that. I feel like this is what the Saints actually need. I mean, we talk back, it's been how long has it been since we've had both a potentially new starting quarterback and new head coach at the same time in the Saints? It's been since Drew Brees and Sean, so 2006. So this is fun. This is stuff that gets you up in the day. Like, it doesn't matter what the record ends up being at the end of the year. This is probably the most excited I've been as a Saints fan probably since pre-Drew Brees and Sean Payton. Once they decide to hang it up.
Yeah, and the other thing I'll add is, you're talking about, okay, a starting quarterback. If you do have a starting quarterback in this group, which hopefully you do, you may not, but hopefully you do. That would mean you have the next 3 years. Next year you're going to take a pretty big hit for Derek Carr, which is a lot smaller because he retired, but it's still going to be something in the $30 million range, dead money. Like that's going to make it basically like you're paying $40 million for a quarterback. Which isn't that crazy. You have Brock Purdy making like 50 something million and $60 million quarterbacks and whatever. But like the next 3-4 years, you're going to be in prime runway territory of like, you're not paying your quarterback anything and you're not really paying a backup, which like, you remember like even Jameis Winston as the backup, he was making a good amount of money. Andy Dalton, I think, was making like $8 million. You're going to be getting away with a 5th-round rookie somewhere in that equation, which is basically nothing, and a 2nd-round pick, which is like $2 million a year. So if this does work out, you're going to be in the same territory that the 49ers have been in prior to this year, that the Seahawks were in when they had Russ on a rookie contract, that the Cowboys were in when they had Dak on that rookie contract, which means you can keep paying the players to build around him. The other thing I'll just say, like for Spencer, like Spencer's in a little behind the 8 ball in the sense that he was drafted by the old regime and, Tyler's Kellen Moore's guy and whatever. As a 5th-round pick, like I don't care who you thought you were. I don't care where you thought you should have been drafted. Guys who get drafted in the 5th round don't often get a chance to just straight up compete for a starting quarterback. It just doesn't happen that often. Even like Russ was a 3rd-round pick. Dak was a 4th-round pick. We're talking about a 5th-round pick who's on an even playing field with a guy to win a quarterback job. So, yeah, I mean, this is just not the type of situation that comes around often for a guy in his situation. So, I mean, I think you're going to get everything he's got. And so I'm excited to see it.
Now, last season, let me just say this. Last season, Spencer Rattler, I know a lot in Who That Nation. They say, well, DOLPH went 0-6. Well, again, circumstances. Look what was around him. But he had his moments, and not just in one game, in multiple games. The thing was, he couldn't put together a full game. Now, if we can take that Washington game in that second half, bottle that up into a consistent week in and week out performance with a healthy Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, Alvin, Taysom, Jawan, and an offensive line with 4 number ones and a number 2 up front, then maybe we'll have something in Spencer. My thing is this. I like both young quarterbacks. I like them both. I don't have a favorite. Who that nation? I know a lot of you right now, you're picking favorites. Some of you going to be Spencer, some going to be pro Tyler. My thing is this. I'm for whoever gives the Saints the best opportunity to win. We need a franchise quarterback. Miami is still looking for a franchise quarterback since Dan Marino retired. I don't care. Tua is not a franchise quarterback to me. He's good, but he's not a franchise quarterback. I'm just saying. And the difference between these two right now, what I've seen from looking at the tape, college and also the one season with Spencer here and Tyler, is this. To me, when it's muddy, Jeff, when it's muddy, the pocket is muddy. Tyler has a tendency to throw off his back foot and also a tendency sometimes just to do a play. And I'm not just talking about that play against Stanford, fam. Y'all got to go back and watch his games at Texas Tech and Louisville. He has tendency when under pressure, especially after the injuries, to just basically just try to get the ball out of his hand. So that's an area I think he's going to have to improve on. And as for Spencer, last year, Spencer showed you there were times he got the crap knocked out of him, but he stood in the pocket and he delivered a catchable, accurate ball. Now, of course, he had his moments when he was inaccurate and everything. He has to improve against the blitz. I think a lot more this season. He must show that he's able to dissect more quickly when facing pressure. Like Tampa Bay, they just blitzed him to death, and we saw what happened there. So what's your thoughts about that from you studying both quarterbacks on film?
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned the Washington game, and I actually think, the first half against the Bucs game, if we're talking about the starter role, the first half against the Bucs in week 18 is the one I would look at and be like, that was his best half of the season. He didn't carry it over to the second half, but I like going into the game and playing out of the gate well is something he had not done to that point. So that was big for me to see. In terms of if he is the backup, that game against Washington is great, makes you feel great, because if he's coming off the bench, you need him to be able to go into a scenario. You're not going to get a much worse scenario than that. I think they were down 17. Yeah. So like that's a good thing as well, to be able to come off the bench and play well. But for the throw, the sacks versus throwaways part of it, one of the big issues for Spencer was taking way, way, way too many sacks. Like, yes, you want a guy who's going to be willing to stand in there, but I mean, he was sacked. I don't even have the number in front of me. It was crazy. Like, behind the same offensive line that Derek was sacked 10 times over 10 games, he was sacked something like 30 times over 7 games, 6.5 games. So that you can't win that way. No. You also can't win throwing the ball away all the time. It's got to be somewhere in the middle. And I do think that, yes, Tyler's going to get some negativity for throwing the ball away a lot, but throwaways are an NFL thing, right? Like you need to know when to throw the ball away in the NFL. Caleb Williams is like one of the reasons he struggled as a rookie is he just was unwilling to throw the ball away. He was unwilling to give up on a play, even when the play was long dead. It was like, I can just bounce around. And then, he gets sacked, 80 times last year. Right. So it's gotta be a middle ground. I would much rather have the guy who understands when a play is dead than doesn't understand and just constantly takes, like, you take one 10, 12-yard sack, the drive's basically over. Yeah, maybe you can come up with something crazy to convert a first down. But, if you're talking about 2nd and 15 versus 2nd and 10, the percentages change dramatically.
Right.
So I don't know. Yeah, that's going to be my biggest question for Tyler. And we don't really know until the games start.
Right. Exactly.
How does he handle it when the pocket gets muddy? I do like his ability to move and throw off platform.
Yes,
that's probably his best skill is when he gets out of the pocket, especially when he's rolling away from his arm, which is not an easy thing to do. He's able to just kind of keep his shoulders square and deliver a ball with pace on target. And when you can do that, it puts the defense in a really difficult position because they have to stay on their man. And then you have a guy like Tyler who if you watch Texas Tech, Oregon, Tyler Shuck, he was running all the time. One of the reasons he got hurt is because, Texas Tech was asking to play like Taysom Hill. Like, you might not believe me, but you can go watch a Texas Tech game with Tyler Shuck was there. He's running QB power. There was a bowl game against Ole Miss. They were up, I think, like 13 points or 20 points in the third quarter, like late in the third quarter, and they're running like a QB draw up the middle. Like, what are you doing? It's a bowl game. Like, this is the quarterback for next year. Like, in what universe is that the play call? But
is that the play?
So he can do that. And that's what I'm curious about, is how much of that do you take advantage of, and how much are you just protecting him from hits in that scenario? But no, I think like they both have to work on different things, right? Like Tyler has to work on, yes, understanding when to throw the ball away and not giving up on a play and not panicking and putting the ball up for grabs. Spencer has to work on understanding when a play is over and kind of reading the rush and understanding who's hot. Like, that was an issue for him last year in a couple games where he didn't ID, he needed to get the ball out hot and he just didn't see it in time. And I can't remember what game it was, but maybe it was the Broncos. Guy just came from behind and wiped him out, sacked, fumble. I think it was the Broncos. I think it was a return for a touchdown. Yeah. And like, those are the plays that can't happen. Like, those are game-changing plays when you're talking about a sack fumble at the 50-yard line. When if you're, IDing the rush, you're IDing that you don't have enough players to block that guy. Like, that's just a QB play. That's got to be on the quarterback. So it's all thing. And that's not to say Tyler's better at that. We just haven't seen him do it. So there's no tape to complain about.
Yeah. I know, like, whenever I was looking back, like last year, I mean, start with Rattler, it's like, one, he's been able to make phenomenal throws and stuff like that. I especially love when they set him out off the snap to roll out to his left or to his right and be able to do things on his feet, because, people get, it creates more options for him in this, more mobile quarterback era of football that we're in. But, again, with those rookie mistakes that he had, and it's hard to get a really good film study on him from last year because of the issues with the offensive line, because of the issues with no weapon. So it's really tough to evaluate, like, what can we really get out of him whenever we had our C team out there most of the time. I think we all have seen on Twitter, I can't remember what the channel that posted it or the account that posted it, but all of his 20+ yard passes unpressured. And I'm like, well, okay, that's all good and dandy that it really wasn't that great of highlights. It's like, but when you were getting sacked 5 times prior, in the last 15 minutes, well, yeah, you're a little bit more nervous to try and get that ball out. It's not like you're sitting there staring at the line, but you start hearing the footsteps. So, you tend to make little mistakes like that, especially, young with the tough receivers. And then when I take a look at Shuck, all things you said, I think are spot on. How they played him at Texas Tech and Oregon was a little bit different. At Louisville, I wonder if it was a thing of they were instructing him to throw the ball away even more often. I mean, their wide receivers were some of the worst in the country. They had the highest drop percentage in college football this past year. So that plays a big part. I think, Shuck has all the tools and your things that you shot off, a list of what a starting quarterback should look like in the NFL. But again, we have yet to see it. We've seen these moments through college football, but will they translate from playing at Louisville to playing in the NFL, where, you've got some injuries because you got hit? I know they're, bones and stuff like that. It's not ligaments and muscle and stuff like that, but where these guys are bigger, faster, stronger. Are you able to go through those reads? Are you going to get into that habit that you developed with Louisville, where you're chucking away when your first 2 options aren't there, instead of trying to extend out whenever, there may be a screen that's available where those 3 or 4 yards matter on a 1st and 10 and making it 2nd and 6. Those things matter a lot more in the NFL than what they do in college.
Yeah, when we talked to Jeff Brom after the draft, he basically said that, like, their goal was to keep him healthy. And that's like, you're getting Tyler Shuck to transfer there for 1 year. Your goal is to get him through a season and get him ready to be a professional quarterback. And that's what that offense is, the pro style offense. He's operating out of a huddle, which, not a lot of teams necessarily do, at least not with the quarterback calling the plays in full and making checks at the line and that sort of thing. So, that is a bit of an advantage for him. He comes out of a system like that. But yeah, I don't think the instruction was throw the ball away. But
of course,
it was definitely ingrained in him to an extent of a throwaway is better than a sack. So, when push comes to shove, if you feel like, the play is dead, get the ball out. Like we're not bouncing around. We're not sitting back there. If you have a clean pocket, that's one thing. If there's pressure, roll out. And, like people didn't like Derek Carr. Funny thing is, like, we're talking about 20-yard throws. Derek was one of the more effective deep ball passers in the NFL last year. He also was very effective at avoiding sacks. Now, how do you do that? You throw the ball away. There was obviously that play against Kansas City where he tried to do that, didn't quite get it done. It was an interception. But, I think it goes both ways. Like, again, you have to balance it. Like Bo Nix, if you want to go watch Bo Nix and say, why was Bo Nix successful as a rookie? It was because he didn't take sacks. Like that's as a young player. If all you do is avoid sacks, you give yourself a chance to win. So it's a give and take. And that's just the situation the Saints are in because they don't have a veteran that they can rely on to be like, you understand what to do. We don't have to kind of give you instruction every step of the way. I think with a young guy, you do have to give them answers and give them at times simple answers, right? You can't ask them to be doing a ton of complex things. You got to send them out there with a plan, with answers to the questions that they're going to get. And when the question they get is when they don't have an answer to, don't try to do anything crazy. And that's what Sean had Bo Nix doing. Like the Broncos had a great season. Sean had training wheels on Bo Nix the entire way.
Right. And Jeff, we want to thank you for joining us, man. It's been a pleasure. And before we get out of here, I got Rose City's comment up there. Rose, how you doing, my brother? Come on in. Rose says Banks, Penning, McCord, Ruiz, and Fuaga. To me, family, this is the most important unit on the New Orleans Saints. This unit right here, continuity, we got a new offense. There's going to be the first second year signal caller for the Saints this season. If the Saints are able to run the ball, protect the passer, I think the season could be better than what we expected. Going back to what you were saying earlier, Zach and Jeff, about not having reasonable expectations of 3 wins, it not being a promising season. People have been calling for the rebuild. I remind you, gentlemen, this is Who That Nation. And the same people who have been calling for a rebuild for the last 3-4 years will be the first people you see on your podcast, this podcast, and every other podcast going straight berserk and saying, fire Kellen Moore, fire this staff. We need a new quarterback. We need another coaching staff. These are the same people. I told you, when you ask for it, be careful. You heard the old saying, be careful what you ask for. But listen, the rebuild is here, family. And listen, it might not be pretty.
Get along for the ride, man. It's not going to be.
It might be ugly. But you hear me say this the last 2 times. We got 2 examples. And they believe me. They were saying the same thing about those organizations that they're saying about the Saints, the Houston Texans and the Washington Commanders. What do both of those 2 teams have in common? They hit with a young quarterback. I'm praying. I'm pulling for Spencer. I'm pulling for Tyler. I'm pulling for both. I hope when we come out of camp, we got 2 potential franchise young quarterbacks on the roster because, like you said, we're going to need both of them at some point during the season. Thank you all for joining us. But before we get out of here, man, Jeff, man, once again, my brother, it's been a while, man. You're always gracious whenever I reach out to you, man. I truly appreciate your time, man. Happy Memorial Day to you and your family. And, man, let everybody know what you guys have going on over there at WWL and where else everyone can find you at.
Yeah, so, WWL.com, as you mentioned, Steve Geller and myself host Inside Black and Gold podcast. We haven't recorded this week. So we took a couple days off after OTA, so we still haven't gotten to our post-OTA pod yet. So we're going to record that tomorrow morning and get that out. But, yeah, I mean, that's where you can find it. You can find me on Twitter at Jeff_Nowak. It's always going to be Twitter to me. And I host Sports Talk on Fridays with Steve Geller as well, so you can check that out at wwlamfm.com and the Odyssey app. That's what I've trained myself to say. When you get on the radio, you have to pick up those little things where you can say it without thinking about it. That's
right.
Anyway,
That was good.
So
Yeah, that was good,
Hey,
bro. That was
Jeff.
real
Hey,
good.
appreciate you having you, man. It was a pleasure being able to talk with you again. And like I'll tell you what, the AI guy doesn't do you justice, brother. We're gonna have to get that figured out. We'll talk.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah,
talk
keep
to
seeing-
chat.
I
We'll
keep
talk to
seeing
Chat
the
GPT get
chin.
it fixed.
I keep seeing the chin pop up, and I'm like, oh no, is that what my chin looks like? Oh gosh.
Well, look, Jeff, once again, thank you, my
Have a
brother.
blessed one, man.
And look, Jeff, remember, man, you family, so the doors are always open. All you got to do, my brother, is just come on in. Thank everybody in the chat for being here with us. That's
Cheers,
Zach.
guys.
I'm Dolph. That's the one and only Saint Sideline reporter, Black and Gold, Inside Black and Gold host, Jeff Nowak. Hey, we'll see y'all later. And like always, love and who that? And we
Happy
out.
Memorial Day.